have a lot of information and a lot of information to give you, and I want your mind clear. In order to do that, I need to take away anything that's on your mind. And when people start to open up, it's like us opening up to this camera right now. You can just go on and on.
Right.
And that's why our arrangements take so long, because we give the people the opportunity to tell us things. We're also, and I think you kids will agree, we're making mental notes of what they're saying. They could be saying a lot of little things that, I like this and he liked that. And so when we actually get into the arrangement, we can refer back to them and say, earlier you told me that Dad liked this. Let me make a suggestion. And it might be something as much as Dad planted tomatoes. Every summer he planted his tomato plants, loved them, and gave them to all his neighbors and everything else. Maybe a nice gesture would be at the end of the services that we get a few dozen tomato plants and pass them out to everybody and let everyone plant a tomato plant in Dad's memory. You can imagine what that does to a family when they know that you've been listening to them. They may not do it. They may say, no, I really don't want to do that. But at least they know you've heard what they've said. And then a lot of people will say, oh, I'd love to do that. And plus I want to do this or that and the other thing.
I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright and summer days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun of happy memories that I leave when my life is done.
And what the Egyptians basically did is a lot through dehydration. So we, as modern-day funeral directors today, can get almost the same results within a couple of hours, which took them over 70 days to do through their process.
Fusillo and Warren and Countryside Funeral Homes. This is John speaking.
Usually you try to feel out what type of services they're looking at. If you know they're having more so traditional services with the visitation, then we verbally at that point would get permission for embalming to take place. And then I'll let the chief embalmer explain embalming to you.
Right. Number one, you have to understand that the funeral industry is very regulated, both by the Federal Trade Commission and also by the State Board of Mortuary Science. So there are many rules and regulations we must follow. As you heard Sharon say, we get permission to embalm. A lot of lay people would think that they're calling a funeral director, that's what he's supposed to do. That's not always the case. If you're having direct cremation or anything else, you can't assume that that's what you're supposed to do. Dr. Hunter developed the arterial embalming, and what you're really doing is you're replacing the blood in the venal and arterial system with a preservative chemical, which is embalming fluids. There's many different types of chemicals out there, very little formaldehyde that people think is in there today, but because of the chemists that we have today, the chemicals are very, very good, and their actions are very good. They could still preserve a person and yet make that person still feel very lifelike. That procedure is basically done by injecting one of the major arteries, which would be a carotid artery if you're in your neck area, your axillaries, which are under your arm, or your femorals, which are down in the groin area. Those are the major points for embalming. Each embalmer looks at things differently on what he best or she best sees fit to use. And you drain from that vein that comes back from that area. That process is done by a machine. The machine is actually taking the place of a heart. Your heart pumps just if you could visualize a whole system being like a road map, going and coming, that's what happens. Your arterial system goes one way, your venal system comes back the other way, and you try to get as much of the blood out of that person as you can and replace it with this fluid.
Not how did he die, but how did he live? Not what did he gain, but what did he give? These are the units to measure the worth of a man as a man, regardless of birth. Not what was his church, nor what was his creed, but had he befriended those really in need? Was he ever ready with word of good cheer, to bring back a smile, to banish a tear? Not what did the sketch in the newspaper say, but how many were sorry when he passed.
As far as cultures, yes, everybody has different cultures, and we try to abide by whatever those cultures are, and we're seeing more and more of that with the diversified communities. As an example, a town here, when I came here in '79 and bought the funeral home, Manville was predominantly a Polish, Italian community. Today it's a very diversified community, so you have many more ethnic backgrounds that you would be catering to. And each one is a little different. If we deal with a Catholic priest or we deal with a Buddhist priest, we have to know what their traditions are and what they expect and what they would like us to do for their families. As every person is different, every funeral is different. So even if you still deal with the same church or the same clergy, everybody's life is different, so everybody's funeral is going to be different, and that's what you try to memorialize. Stone? Up? Yeah, right.